بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد نورك الساري وبذلك الجاري، واجمع به في كل أطواري، واجمع به كل أوطاري، وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ورضي الله تعالى عن ساداتنا في الدين ومشايخنا الأكرمين ومشايخهم ومشايخ مشايخهم إلى سيد المرسلين. أما بعد، فنوينا التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنحو والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم، واتباع الهدى والدلال على الخير وابتغاء وجه مرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. وكنا وصلنا إلى آخر الحديث عند قوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم: من كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله هجرته إلى الله ورسوله، أو من كانت هجرته إلى دنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه.
بسم الله. Mentioned the Nia Imam Haddad, Allah said we left off last time at the end of the hadith of the first hadith in the collection, which talks about the intention. The one whose hijrah was for Allah and His Messenger, his hijrah is for Allah and His Messenger, and the one whose hijrah is for the dunya or for a woman, then his hijrah is for what he made hijrah for.
ونقل عن في سبب هذا الحديث في قوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم: من كانت هجرته إلى دنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها. قيل أن سبب هذا الحديث أن أحد الصحابة كان يريد أن يتزوج امرأة في مكة، فقالت: لن أتزوجك حتى تهاجر إلى المدينة. فهاجر إلى المدينة ليس لله ولا لرسوله، وإنما للزواج من تلك المرأة. فقال صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: من كان هجرته للدنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها. لكن هذا الحديث ضعيف لا صحيح، ويبدو أن متنه منكر. فساداتنا الصحابة رضي الله تعالى عنهم وأرضاهم نياتهم أعلى وهممهم أسماء ومقاماتهم أجل من أن تكون لغير الله سبحانه وتعالى.
So, what context did the Prophet ﷺ make this statement? It's been narrated that he said this referring to an individual, a man who wished to marry a woman in Mecca, and she said that she would not marry him in Mecca, but rather she made the condition that he would have to make hijrah to Medina in order to marry her. So as a result, he made hijrah for the sake of marrying her, basically. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ made that statement that the one who makes hijrah for the sake of a woman to marry her, then his hijrah is for that sake, for that reason. So in other words, he didn't make hijrah sincerely for Allah and His Messenger, made it for some worldly gain. However, Shaykh Mukhtar said that this hadith which talks about this individual is extremely weak, and it shouldn't be. We shouldn't take this hadith, and it's not appropriate of the Sahaba, the companions, that they had these kind of low base intentions. They were people who had high goals and high intentions, and it's not appropriate they would do something like this.
ثم قال سيدنا الإمام النووي رحمه الله تعالى: رواه هذا الحديث رواه إماما المحدثين أبو عبد الله محمد بن عبد الله بن إبراهيم بن المغيرة بن بردزبة البخاري، وأبو الحسين مسلم بن الحجاج بن مسلم القشيري النيسابوري في صحيحيهما اللذين هما أصح الكتب المصنفة. يقول: أخرج هذا الحديث ورواه إماما المحدثين، يعني سادة المحدثين في زمنه، الإمام أبو عبد الله محمد بن إسماعيل البخاري، والإمام مسلم أبو الحسين مسلم بن القشيري النيسابوري. أما الإمام كلاهما من نيسابور، من خراسان، تقع على أطراف إيران.
So Imam Nawawi says that this hadith is narrated by the two Imams of the Hadith scholars, the two great Imams of the Hadith scholars, Abu Abdullah Muhammad bin Ismail al-Bukhari and Abu Hussein Muslim bin al-Hajjaj bin Muslim al-Naysaburi. These are the two Imams, the greatest of the Hadith scholars. Both of them are from the same region, Nisapur, or what's now Central Asia, Eastern Iran, basically.
أما البخاري رحمه الله تعالى عليه هو فارسي، أصله فارسي، وجده بردزبة أسلم على أبو اليمان الجعفي.
So as for Imam Bukhari, he was Persian of origin. His grandfather Bardazbah became Muslim at the hands of
أبو اليمان
al-Ju'fi.
وهو يمني.
كان صحابي.
لا كان أميرا في الجعف.
So he became Muslim at Abu Yaman al-Ju'fi. He was a Yemeni. He was the ruler of the governor of the region which is in. He became Muslim in his hands.
لهذا يقال الإمام البخاري الجعفي مولاه، هو من يعني ولاه اليمنيين.
So for that reason, Imam Bukhari is known as al-Ju'fi. He's, if you like, attached to the tribe of the Ju'fi tribe due to the fact that his grandfather became Muslim at the hands of that Yemeni tribe.
كان في ذاك الزمن القديم من أسلم على يد رجل ولاه له. إذا إنسان أفريقي أسلم على يد يمني على يد كذا، فيقال مثلا الصومالي المسلمين مثلا كذا، أن الحبشي نعم مولاهم المكي، مولاهم المدني، مولاهم العراقي، مولاهم.
So in the early days of Islam, if you would be known by the person at whose hands you became Muslim. So if your origin was African or Persian or whatever, then you'd be known as you're Persian in origin, and you are by your connection, by your wilaya, your wali, if you like, was an Arab from a Yemeni origin, for example.
تعظيم الإسلام، يرون أنه بما أنه قد هدى الإسلام هذا مولاي.
And it was out of veneration or if you like, gratitude for the fact that they become Muslim. They kind of associate themselves with the ones that whose hands they became Muslim.
والإمام البخاري رحمة الله تعالى عليه ولد في نيسابور من أبوين مسلمين، ولما بلغ 7 من عمره ذهب وصاب.
المسلم.
البخاري. أصاب بالجدري الذي يصيب الأطفال، ثم انتشر الجدري فيه حتى وصل إلى عينه فعمي.
So Imam Bukhari was born in Nisapur, and he, at the age of 9, he became sick with smallpox, and he became blind as a result.
ثم أمه كانت من الصالحات، قلت تسأل الله وتدعو وتضج، تتوسل إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى، فرأت في المنام سيدنا الخليل إبراهيم عليه السلام، فقال لها امرأة إن الله قد أعاد بصر ولدك بدعائك، وأصبحت الصباح ولدها يبصر.
So his wife, because his mother was one of the pious women, and she pleaded with Allah and prayed all night and asked Allah, and eventually she had a dream. She saw Sayyidina Ibrahim, Khalil alayhi salam, and he gave her the good tidings that her son's sight will be returned. And the following day he woke up and his sight had come back. Imam Bukhari.
ثم رضي الله تعالى عنه حفظ القرآن في ذاك السن 7 أو 8 حفظ القرآن الكريم.
Then Imam Bukhari memorized the Quran at that young age of 7 or 8.
ولما بلغ 9 بدأ يقرأ في كتب أهل العلم.
At the age of 9 he began studying the sciences of Sharia, the books of knowledge.
ولما بلغ 11 كان يحفظ في كتب أهل الحديث.
At the age of 11 he began memorizing hadith.
حضر مرة المجلس لأحد العلماء، فالعالم هذا أورد سند، فقال حدثنا فلان عن فلان، والبخاري سنه 11 عاما. قل يا شيخ خطأ. زعل الناس في المجلس، كيف خطأ الشيخ الكبير العالم الإمام؟ فقال كيف خطأ هذا صح؟ وغضب الشيخ. دخل الشيخ يجيب الكتاب، فتح كتاب الشيخ، شيخ خطأ. قال البخاري ما هو الصواب؟ قال الصواب كذا وكذا وكذا. قال والله صدقت. لماذا؟ قال أن فلان لا يروي إلا عن فلان. قال والله هذا ما في الكتاب. وصلوا 11 عام.
So at the age of 11 he once attended a lesson of one of the hadith scholars, and this hadith scholar narrated a hadith, and then Imam Bukhari at the age of 11 said this, he corrected him, said what you said is incorrect, and everyone was upset that how could this young boy show this etiquette with the sheikh, this great sheikh, and the sheikh himself was upset, how can this young boy say this? And then he went back and checked the book, and then he looked at the book, and then he asked Imam Bukhari what is the correct narration if he likes. Imam Bukhari narrated the hadith on the authority of so and so, on authority of so and so and so. He said that's correct. And he said, how did you know? He said, I know that so and so only narrates on the authority of so and so. So it's only impossible that he could narrate for someone else.
ولما بلغ الإمام البخاري 14 عاما كان يقول قد انتهيت من النظر في كتب أهل الرأي وحفظت حديث عبد الله المبارك وسفيان الثوري وهذه طبقة.
So he said at the age of 14 I have finished, if you like, studying the books of the Ahl al-Ra'i, the people of how to translate it, and then I've studied all the hadith of the great hadith scholars, the early hadith scholars, Abdullah ibn Mubarak, Sufyan al-Thawri, those early scholars, studied all the hadith, read all the hadith.
فمعتقد السنة انتهى من حفظ هذه العلوم، بقي الآن يجتهد بنفسه، صار يجمع وصار بعد بدأ يجتهد بنفسه.
So as if he now finished his studies at age 14, now he began his own efforts in studying and in spreading knowledge.
وجد في طلب العلم، وكان يلازم مجلس إسحاق بن راهويه يكثر. ومرة قال إسحاق بن راهويه رحمة الله تعالى عليه: وددت لو أن أحدكم جمع كتابا في الحديث الصرف الخالص. يقول فوقع في نفسي فشرعت في جمع هذا الكتاب الصحيح.
So he carried on with his studies, and he spent time in the company of studying at the hands of Sheikh Ishaq al-Rahawayh, who was one of the great scholars of the time. And the Sheikh said to him at one point during in one of the lessons, he said, "I wish that someone would just compile a collection of hadith which is purely sahih hadith, purely sound hadith." And Sheikh Bukhari heard this, and it had an effect on him.
استمر رحمة الله تعالى عليه على كتابة الحديث وعلى نقله وعلى جمعه إلى أن جمع هذا كتاب صحيح البخاري في 16 عاما.
So he continued gathering hadith and acting upon what the Shaykh has said until he compiled his collection over the course of 16 years.
ومن فضائل هذا الكتاب أن الإمام البخاري يقول: ما أدخلت فيه حديثا حتى اغتسلت وصليت ركعتين. كل حديث فيه صليت فيه البخاري ركعتين.
And to show the merit of this book, he said that for every single hadith that I put in this book, before putting in the book, I made ghusl, I had a bath and prayed 2 rak'ahs, and then only after that, then I would put that hadith in the collection.
يقول والأبواب اللي هي باب كذا باب كذا باب النية باب، قال والأبواب كتبتها بين القبر الشريف والروضة. كنت جالس بين قبر رسول الله وروضته ثم كتبت هذه الأبواب.
And as for the chapter titles, if you like, throughout the book of Bukhari, there's Bab, chapter this, so and so and so. He said, I wrote all of those chapter titles between the grave and in the Rawdah of the Sharifah, basically, in the Rawdah of the Prophet in Medina, next to the grave of the Prophet.
يقول في الليل المقمرة على القمر، لما كان في الزمان ذاك بعد العشاء يدخل السراج، فيقول على ضوء القمر يكون بين القبر الشريف وبين الروضة الشريفة أكتب باب حتى تعود بركة هذا المكان المشرف المكرم على الصحيح العادة.
He said, I wrote these chapters I wrote under moonlight, with moonlight, because they would extinguish the lamps in the masjid. And so he wrote in that blessed place. He wrote the titles of these chapters from the light of the moon.
ولهذا جرب هذا الكتاب أنه هو أصح كتاب من كتب الدنيا من حيث التنقيح ومن حيث التحقيق ومن حيث وهذا الكتاب كذلك جربه كما يقول ابن حجر وابن أبي جمرة، أجمع العارفون على أنه لقضاء الحاجة. ولهذا في كل بلاد إذا نزلت مصيبة أو كذا يجتمعون ويقرؤون صحيح الإمام البخاري ليندفع البلاء، فإما أن يندفع البلاء وإما أن يخف.
So it's been proved to be the most authentic book after the Quran, of course. And when people looked at the contents of it and gone over it, and they found it to be the most rigorous in terms of its authenticity and so on. And it's also used to deflect tribulation. So whenever a tribulation befalls any place, you find the scholars of that place, they'll gather to read Sahih Bukhari, and either the tribulation will be deflected or it will be reduced. This is the Shaykh mentioned Ibn Abi Jamrah and Ibn Hajar.
وسيدنا الإمام البخاري مع قوة حفظه وكثرة علمه وشدة مثابرته في طلب العلم كان آية من آيات الله في المعرفة بالله وفي العبادة.
So not only was Imam Bukhari a great scholar and spent his time in knowledge and in preserving knowledge and so on, but he was also one of the knowers of Allah, one of the people those who worship Allah in abundance.
يقول من أول الرؤى التي رآها في المنام أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم واقف والذباب حضره، قال وبيدي مروحة حفظ عن رسول الله. قال فأولتها فقيل أنت تذب الكذب عن رسول الله.
So one of the first dreams that he saw that the Prophet ﷺ was standing and around him were the flies hovering around him. And Sayyid Imam Bukhari had like a hand fan like the ones we have here in Tarim, when he was like driving the flies away, and he said that I understood that to mean that I will defend the Prophet ﷺ from lies which are attributed to him.
ومرة من المرات جاء إلى البصرة إلى بغداد إلى بغداد فخرج يستقبله 100,000. فقال له خادم يا إمام هذا جمع عظيم. فقال له كيف لو رأيتهم وقد خرجوا في البصرة؟ يعني أكثر من 100,000 خرجوا يستقبلوه.
So he once visited Baghdad and 100,000 people came out to welcome him. And the person who was with him, his servant said, "This is an amazing crowd, it's a huge crowd, a vast crowd." And he said, Imam Bukhari said, "This is nothing compared to the amount of people that came out in Basra to welcome him."
فلما دخل بغداد تجمع علماء بغداد وطلبة العلم ثم قالوا سيختبرون الإمام هل هو كما يقال من قوة حفظه وسعة علمه. فجاءوا ب10 طلبة، وهؤلاء الطلبة حفظوا كل واحد منهم 10 أحاديث، 10 في 10 100. والأول عنده الحديث إسناده عنده ومتنه عند الثاني، والثاني إسناده عنده ومتنه عند الرابع، والرابع إسناده عنده ومتنه عند الأول. يعني هذا الإسناد ليس هذا الإسناد، وهذا المتن عند هذا المتن، وهكذا كل واحد من 10 ليس عنده حتى حديث صحيح، كل واحد إسناده عند الآخر. وقفوا عند البخاري قالوا يا إمام نريد أن نسألك. فقال مرحبا تفضل. فالأول قال حدثنا فلان عن فلان عن فلان قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم كذا. فقال لا أعرفه. وقال الثاني حدثنا فلان عن فلان قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. فقال البخاري لا أعرفه. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا أعرفه. حدثنا قال ال10 أحاديث قال لا أعرفه. وبدأ الناس يقولون عجيب كيف يقال البخاري هذا يحفظ. الثاني جاب ال10 أحاديث قال ما أعرفه. الثالث قال ما أعرفه. العلماء منهم قالوا عرف أننا قد خلطنا الأسانيد بالمتون. وأما الجهال فقالوا سقط من عينه ولا عرف واحد من هذه الأحاديث. فلما أكملوا كلهم أكملوا قال لهم لم أعرف حديثا واحدا مما قلت، ولكن الذي أعرفه أنت قلت حدثنا فلان وفلان، هذا المتن الذي قاله قلتها أنت. وصار يرجع كل خطأ إلى صوابه، كل خطأ يرجع إلى صوابه. قالوا والله ما عجبنا من حفظه للصواب، إنما عجبنا من حفظه للخطأ. حفظ الصواب وحفظ الخطأ وأعاد الخطأ إلى الصواب، فأقروا أنه أعلم من دخل بغداد.
So when he entered Baghdad, the scholars, they wanted to test him, they wanted to put him to test. They heard all these great things about him. Was he truly the great scholar that everyone said, the great master of hadith that everyone said? So what they did was they brought 10 students, and each of those 10 students had 10 hadith. But what they did was they mixed we have the matan and the sanad. We have the actual text of the hadith, we have the chain of transmission. So they mixed, every hadith was mixed. They mixed one chain with one text. So every hadith, no hadith was correct. Everything was a text with an incorrect chain of transmission. So there's 100 hadith, all of them were the wrong way around, if you like. So one by one, these students came and recited the hadith to him, and he said, I don't know any of these hadith. And the common people were amazed. They said, how can this great scholar not know any of these hadith? We've had great opinion of him, but now he's kind of gone down in our estimation. As for the scholars, they knew what was going on. So after having heard these 100 hadith, Imam Bukhari said, nothing of what you said is I don't know anything of what you said. However, the first hadith, the text is this, and it's correct. Narration was mentioned by someone else. So he paired up every single one of the 100 hadith with the correct chain of transmission. And when they saw that, they truly realized that he was who he was, and he was the great scholar and the great master that everyone said he was. And it wasn't the fact that he remembered what was correct. He actually remembered what was the mistake that people had made and corrected that.
ولما دخل البصرة استقبله أهل البصرة بأكثر مما استقبله أهل بغداد. فلما جلس قالوا يا إمام حدثنا. فقال الإمام البخاري سأحدثكم ب100 حديث بصري ليس عندكم يا أهل البصرة. يعني هذا الحديث كل رجال من أهل البصرة لكنه غير موجود في البصرة، فحدثوا بالحديث الأول فلم يعرفوه فكتبوا الحديث الثاني إلى 100 حديث.
So when he went to Basra, also in Iraq, he had an even greater welcome. Even more people came out to meet him, an even more warm welcome than in Baghdad. And then when he met with the scholars of Basra, or the people of Basra, he said, I'm going to narrate to you 100 hadith of the hadiths of Basra, meaning that every narrator in the chain is from Basra, and you don't know any of these hadith. You're not familiar with any of these hadith, they've been lost, if you like. So he then narrated to them one by one these 100 hadith, and none of the scholars of Basra knew these hadith.
وكان مع هذا العلم العظيم العلم الجم كان من أهل الصلاح والولاية، فجرب أن الإمام البخاري كان مستجاب الدعوة، ما دعا الله بشيء إلا استجيب له الساعة.
So with this immense knowledge, he was also one of the people of righteousness, one of the Salihin, and it's known that his dua was always answered. Whenever he made dua, it was guaranteed to be answered.
وكان صاحب قيام الليل وخشوع، حتى أنه أحد طلبته يقول خرجنا مرة للنزهة، سبحان الله، حتى نزهة الصالحين عبادة يقبل على الله. قال مرة خرجنا نزهة مع البخاري، فقال خرجنا إلى المكان فيه أشجار وفيه فسحة، فقال البخاري إلى أن تعدوا غداء تجهزوا الشواء وتشووا اللحم سأقوم أصلي سنة الظهر بعدية الظهر. فقال قام وصلى بعدية الظهر ب5 أجزاء. بعدية الظهر صلى ب5 أجزاء. يقول بعد أن سلم قال لخادمه انظر ظهري كأن شوكة صغيرة أصابتني شوكة. قال فتحت ظهره، كان الناس زمان يستعملوا الأردية هذه في الرداء ويلتف يلف حوله. فقال ففتحت الرداء، قال وإذا بزنبور، دبور هذا، وإذا بدبور كبير قد لسعته 17 لسعة حتى تورم ظهره. قال فقلت يا إمام الله ما هي بشوكة، هذا دبور يدمي ويغمي. فقال والله ما شعرته إلا قبيل السلام، لما سلمت شعرت بوخزة صغيرة.
Imam Bukhari was known for his immense khushu', the fact that he humbled in his salah, present in his salah. So once they went out for like an expedition with his students, so even the people of Allah, they have these things which they do. So they went out to a place in the country with nice trees and nice scenery. So they said, while you're preparing the food, I'm going to just pray the sunnah of the dhuhr, ba'diyat al-dhuhr. Pray that. So he stood up, he went off behind a tree and stood in prayer, and he recited 5 juz of the Quran just in the sunnah of after dhuhr while they were preparing the food. And then when he finished, made his salam, he said to his servant, it feels like I've got a thorn in this, I've been pricked by a thorn in my back, can you just check what's in it? So they used to wear rida, like almost like when they were in Hajj, kind of, they wrapped themselves with rida. So he said, so the servant took the rida off, and he found that it was a hornet, or one of those hornet, I think it is, a wasp that had bit him 17 times in his prayer. He said, I didn't notice anything until just before the salam. He said, this is not just a prick of a thorn, it's like something which can make you, other people pass out when they feel these, when they get bitten by these. But that was a state of Imam Bukhari.
قال والبخاري رحمة الله تعالى عليه ما ناكس في بيع قط، ما من كرمه وعلو همته. كلما قيل له يسأل صاحبه بكم هذا؟ يقول له بكذا. ما ناكس عمرك منذ عرف البيع والشراء، بكم يعطي؟ فسأله قال لهم الدنيا أحقر من أن تماكس عليها. ليش الدنيا عند الله تساوي شيء حتى تقول لا؟
And it's known that he never once bargained with anyone in the souk, in the marketplace. When you go and buy something, it's accustomed to have some bargaining. So that he said whatever the first price that the seller mentioned, he would just give them immediately. There's no. And they asked him about it. He said that the dunya is too contemptible that we kind of debate over it and argue over it. Whatever he asks for, just give it to him. There's no. It's not worth arguing over.
وفي آخر عمره يبتلي كما يحصل الصالحين يبتلي. يقول خادمه فسمعته في آخر الليل يرفع يديه ويقول اللهم إن الأرض قد ضاقت علي بما رحبت فأخذني إليك. قال فما مضت 3 أيام إلا وبتوفى.
And like many of the Salihin, the pious, he was tested towards the end of his life. And his servant said, I heard him in one of his prayers at the end of the night saying, I've become constricted, this life is too much for me now, take me. And within 3 days he passed away.
يقول ففي تلك الليلة التي مات رأى أحدهم يقول مات رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. قال ففزعت قلت كيف مات رسول الله؟ قال فأصبحت الصباح وإذا البخاري قد توفي.
the night that he passed away, someone had a dream, and it was in the dream he heard a voice saying that Rasulullah has died, the Messenger of Allah has died, and he was shocked when he woke up, and then he heard the news that Imam Bukhari had passed away that same night.
ومات في قرية معزولة لأنه حصل خلاف بينه وبين السلطان قال تعال إلى القصر سمع أولادي كتابك الصحيح. فقال له يا حضرة السلطان العلم يؤتى إليه، ما عادة العلم أن يأتي إلى باب السلاطين. فغضب منه السلطان وطرده، وتوفي في قرية صغيرة اسمها خرتنك.
He died in a small village called Khartanak, and the reason he was in this village was that the Sultan of the time had become displeased with him and if you like, banished him from the city. Why was that? Because the Sultan said to Imam Bukhari, come to the palace and teach my children Sahih Bukhari. And Imam Bukhari said, unfortunately no, you come to knowledge and knowledge doesn't come to you. Now, if you want to learn something, you go to the teacher doesn't come to you. So as a result, the Sultan was enraged and he banished him from the city, and he died in a small town called Khartanak.
وأطبق من ترجم له أنه رضي الله تعالى عنه حينما وضعوه في لحده وأهالوا عليه التراب مباشرة ما أن استوى التراب على قبره نضخ من قبره مسك، وصار كل قبضة من تراب قبره تنضخ بالمسك الشديد حتى خشي من حواليه من أقاربه أن ينبش الناس قبره، لأنه كانوا يأخذون التراب ويجدون فيها رائحة المسك الشديدة، فضربوا على قبره سورا حتى لا يأخذ أحد منه التراب.
So when they buried him and he was placed, they placed him in his grave and poured the earth over him. Immediately there was a strong smell of musk. So this earth was filled with this strong scent of musk, and people started taking the earth and smelling this beautiful scent, and to the point where his relatives were worried that they would take all the earth and they'd actually dig his grave up basically. So as a result, they built like a wall, built a kind of covering, plaster over the grave, so people could no longer take earth from the grave.
ولا زال قبره الآن موجود الحمد لله، عليه ضريح وعليه قبة ويزار الآن.
Alhamdulillah, his grave is still intact to this day. It has a qubba, has like a dome over it. It's well preserved, and people still visit it to this day.
والله تعالى أعلم.